Good morning. Blessings from Scotland. The height of all the philosophy is to know thyself, and the end is to know God. As some of you know, I've been a big book buff for a lot of years. I've delved deep into a lot of them, and I try my best not to attach myself to anything, especially labelistic or isms. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today, we're going to talk more about consciousness or unconsciousness. Take your pick. Both are relevant. Not only this, I thought I'd do a little episode and tap into a really good question that someone asked me on one of the comments on YouTube, which connects to Yuri Benzmenov. Pronouncing it slowly, he's got another name, and if for some of you who don't know, he was the man that spoke of subversion and a lot of other interesting topics. So stick around. Hopefully I make a good episode for you guys. Once again, blessings from Scotland. I hope you're living the dream and having a lovely life. So without further ado, let me run through my thoughts for today. So the Yuri, my book, The Grand Chessboard of Consciousness, Hunger of the Truth, and the shepherd that left the 99 to go and get the one. All relevant to today's topic. So imagine a world where people are actually genuine. Imagine in this world that people don't go around having pleasure winding someone up to change an emotion. Imagine it where when someone says something, there's no deceit in their intentions. Like they go and investigate you to find out something about you, which helps them determine something in their mind. Imagine a world where people are not like this. Imagine the world where there isn't ignorance, where people are genuine, where it's like everybody's a child and we're just so happy to be here and pleasure. What an amazing world. Do you think it would be a world of peace? Do you think there would be people angry? What kind of world would this be? Because this is what God can do for us, for you, for everyone. In a childlike perspective, everything is magic. The world is good. There is no thing which some adults share in a view. So would this world be free? And if the world was free, how would it be? So it's like a world when one knows true will of freedom. Would freedom be not an adult view, but freedom from a child's perspective? So imagine for a moment you knew all things. And in that perspective, would you have hunger to learn? Now, imagine you're the inevitable one. Some call it God, some call it Jehovah. There's many labels, but the easiest one I can share is it's inevitable. You can't define it, because anything defined would be of man, would be of you. So the inevitable. Now imagine you are that inevitable one I'm describing to you. Now look upon his creation. What would you expect to find? Would you expect to find everybody seeking after the inevitable one, or would you expect them to be fulfilled, drunk? What would you expect? Well, Jesus came many years ago. I don't want to be specific in whichever calendar. We're well sure that time has been manipulated many times. I can show you some things in this episode. But when Christ came, he said everybody's drunk. Everybody's there. So let's play this out in a non-intoxicated perspective, right? So if you weren't intoxicated in any way, why would you still be ignorant? Would it be ignorant because you've chosen all the wisdoms that man has made, and yet you do not hunger after the ineffable one? So you hear of all these people taking ceremonies, rites to enter some wisdom or something and learn some thing, right? So best one I can say. People seek a shaman, and then they ask the shaman to make some toxics, put it in a drink, give it a drink, just to try and find a way off of what? So they alter themselves in what? To find a praying mantis. Here's the thing. Many people that speak of these ceremonies always end up with the praying mantis. It's also the same face as the great alien. A few other things, whichever else your imagination, imagine, genie in a ball? A gin? A gin? Are you getting it? Moving on. So, these alterations that they do you think it takes them closer to God, or do you think it takes them further? See, many people will sit back after this experience and then they'll start delving into their mind, trying to figure out what they've just learned. I ask the same question again. Is this a hunger after the ineffable one? Are these the things the ineffable one wanted for his children? Even digging into the Adams and the Eve story, you find the same game in consciousness. It's really interesting, guys. So, don't want to keep wasting time while I ponder in front of you, but moving on to the notes. And these notes will hopefully help the grand game of consciousness be displayed out in your reality. So, this will connect to Yuri Bensmanov. Scripted reality. Now, I listen to a lot of the gematria and the decoders and all these people, and they can sit down and they can actually calculate out how there's certain numbers synchronize up with other numbers, how that certain words display certain numbers. All these things lead you back to, and I do like Alan Watts, and we're going to mention this one in here. It takes us back to the book of Enoch and the lost books of John. And in these books, it explains how that when the mother, the spirit, gave birth to the child without the ineffable one's permission, she repented because of the abomination that she thought she created. But of course, if the ineffable one knew all things, don't you think he knew she was going to do that anyway? So the game was played right at the beginning. It's all about the pieces. And like I just said, Alan Watts, absolutely great thinker. I'm pleased he's on the internet more than other stuff. But he says, imagine living a life where you could dream a dream and you could do running off and saving the prince, running off, saving the princess, whatever you fancied, you know. After you've done it all, where would you be? And that alone is a beautiful thought. Takes us to the ineffable one. Because after you've done all the thoughts, you end up at the one that thinks more than the other one. Is he conscious? Is he unconscious? What's the perspective? The grand chessboard of consciousness, the game. So, what the ineffable one kind of would like is people to hunger after him, after his teachings. Call it him, he, she, they, that. It's all the same thing. So, moving through this reality of scriptness, the scripting was made from the abomination. the abomination created the 7 realms, and he made 7 one and 9 another. Read it. Go look into the books. This is why these gematria people and the decode guy script can sit there and look at what's happening, because each of the demons, they made their piece of their pie, and now some of them want to go to the ineffable one, and I can show you this in their scripts. And remember, it's all a game. It is the fun, like Alan Watts said. So let me play through my notes for you. In one of the scripts, it speaks of the demon Yahweh. Now, Yahweh said to the group that was around him, his 365 demons, he says, "There is no other but me. I am a jealous God." Just think for a moment. Because all those that was around Yahweh, when he said it, got the forethought. Why would someone say this? If they were able to say this, then they must know there was something more, better, bigger, stronger, more intelligent than the one that used that label of a god. And this is why this world is gods and gods, kings, lords. It's all their labels, because they defined themselves as their higher echelon. But the ineffable one is way, 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 way much more. It's so more that there's no word to define. And this is why you have the grand chessboard of consciousness, because there's these unseen forces playing in this scripted reality. Some of them want out. I mean, just continue through the same books, the same scriptures, which is written as far back as we can tell. Some of these are coming out in Sanskrit tablets. Some of them are coming out in other scrolls from... Anyway, when you read it and you play it through, it really delves deep into all the pieces of the pie. And like I said in previous videos, the ineffable one, he'd leave the 99 flock to go and get the one. He doesn't want one piece. And speaking of the one piece, in the 70s, there was a couple of churches, and if you look into this yourself, you'll find there was quite a lot of people, not just a couple of classes or a couple of churches. In the 70s, there was what they call the Jesus people of old-time religion in an Aquarius age. Look up Ronald M. N. Roth and read those books. You'll see that even back in the 70s, some think of it as the LSD era and all that stuff, you'll see that there was a movement that was quite large and gained a lot of momentum, even setting up movements, groups, charities, things like this, to actually help bring forth what they perceived in their grand wake-up of consciousness. Once again, another play, another move on the grand chessboard of consciousness. There's another great part within the texts that speak of a fall, and some of it says the archangels fell, or there was beings that fell. And if you even tap into a fall, a conscious fall, then this also plays part of the game, where you've got a black square and a white square. And the Christ, he says when he came here, he didn't come to make peace, he came to make division. And if you play the game out of black and white squares, you can see that he would have divided mother from daughter, father from son, brother from brother. And this alone is the game. of consciousness. May it be some have non-conscious attributes, or as I scribble in my notes, unconscious, but I think some of you would define that as asleep. Take your pick. So to fall consciously, would this be to be very concluded? Would that mean that you have already determined everything in this realm to be your rock, your thought? Would this be the choice to be ignorant of all other perspectives and views? Would this be to walk the world as a child-like mind? Would this be to go and grab every book in the library and read them all? And what would you find? Remember how I started today's episode? The height of all philosophy is to know thyself. And the height of this is to know God. The fall of consciousness. Everyone falls in their life, in their time, to a point where they may conclude on something. But you have to conclude again. You know, it's like a real scientist, and I often look around this realm and think these scientists have so concluded, which actually makes them a tard of their actual choice profession, because there's something that can be changed. May it be by the magic of God, may it be the view. And I'm sure many of you have heard an apple a day will keep the doctor away and all these other things. What about 3? All these things change every other week. The game of consciousness. So, where do we go and what do we do in our reality? Now, as I said at the beginning, Yuri, and this really takes into a good view. So, you have a world that's scripted. Now you have land that has a lee line. So these lee lines, they connect to all, and if you look them all up, they can show you some scripts too. So when you think something new goes into an area, it lays on an ancient lee line, which has some history. So after a while, the line picks up the new energies. The yin-yang, ping pong. So America grew itself in England, jumped on a boat, sailed over to land, claimed it to be America. So now it's the youngest on the block. So it's already managed to do much more than other empires in its short term. But it's still the youngest one in the block. Now, the current news and the current way things are going, they're actually looking to change America. Partly why you've seen some of the scripted reality for A Great or Great Reset, take your pick. They read the script years ago. They're not writing the script. They've known it's been scripted for thousands of years. Think about it. All the puppets are playing what they're meant to do. So someone asked me, he says, what was my view when I first saw Yuri when I was a lot younger? You could have never have thought the world would have changed the way it has. It's pretty sad. A lot of people was kind of like, Yuri, you're way out there, man. But see now, demoralization, all of it. was all scripted. It was all played. It's a chess move. It's a chess move by a conscious ley line longer before a younger, experienced. And now what happens? It's all over to you guys. Do you seek God's face? Christ came, and there's one that speaks of the fig tree. He walks past the branch on the floor and he says, wither. And then next day they walk past and it's completely withered up to shite. The point of the story is, when God looks down on these nations, these ley lines, these places, does he find a lot of ripe fruits that seek him, seek the face, seek the real teacher? Or does he find everybody drunk, pissed, partying, concluded, already found their Vishnu, Krishna? I mean, when you tap into all the stuff about the Christ, he says, through me you meet the Father. Do you think he says, go and keep chasing after the pagan god over there, or praise the moon, or have a party for the sun? What do you think it was about? And do you think he prompted you to learn his ways or his Father's ways? Alan Watts, he says, the dream of reality. So here's the thing. Doesn't matter where you are in this reality right now. The whole thing is Christ scripted. Whether you believe it like Alan Watts, whether you want to look at it from Krishna, Vishnu's, Sathya Sai Baba's, whichever. The whole thing is Christ scripted. There's some people that often speak about, how they can get out of it, out of the void, back into the phrase universe means one verse. So, in answer to the Yuri, that was a shout out for Martin Ledderman. Hopefully that gives you a brief view. And I did say it was going to be interesting. I think you've brought this episode, so thank you. Another shout out to Martin Ledderman. One other thought on this interview with Yuri Benzmanov, and for some of you, it might be worth actually going and looking at that, because this guy came out of the KGB and basically explained the long game that was being played, which, I mean, I never thought about making a book about the grand chessboard of consciousness and the way that all things can be played, and everybody plays their own board in their game. Mention this next interview. There's a YouTube channel out there, Valuetainment. Pat, absolutely brilliant interviewer. Admirable person to watch. He does an interview with a guy called Jack Barsky. And Jack is a recent KGB operative that came out. And he speaks of similar things. And when you watch the interview with Pat, the guy gets upset at one point because he mentions Yuri. And I find it really interesting, considering the world stage that's being set up for a pawn move. It's really drumroll. But this guy, Jack, he's like, nah, I disagree with a bit of the Yuri. Which is interesting, because I think they're both right. But this is what I'm talking about. The ignorance of ourself, what we can do in the flesh, is that we choose to have our set view. Because here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. America, America. It is the center of the stage. It's where all the shit's played out. You know, it's like America runs over there, runs over here, runs over there, runs over there. Does all these things, right? It is the actual the board. You know, it's. Guys, the whole game is a fun game of reality, right? It's crazy. So this guy Jack, he shares similar views to what went on with the KGB, and there's quite a lot of people actually coming out talking about it. But I think a lot of us forget how old Russia is and how long it's been on the ley lines. And, it's existed long before the current corporation that's on the land of America. So it's really interesting. And not only that, it rents a sea off of Russia. A whole fucking sea. The whole game. Brilliant, isn't it? Well, guys, I hope I've made an interesting episode for you guys today. And we'll continue to work towards getting a mental perspective of the game. And, there's a lot of people talking about this. And I said it in 2017 or 15. So, sometime around there. A lot of people talking about this eclipse season, which is coming over. You've got this 8th of April moon movement over certain states, and it touches on certain names. And all that names came from... So the chessboard was set long before it's all a beautiful game. Key thing is not to attach, but to question the question. And remember, every answer you receive, you should grow a question. And I believe this is the real hunger of which the Christ spoke of. I mean, if every man can give you every answer, then is that the answer? Is there more to seek? And if that's the case, then it would have to be the inevitable one that would give us the answer. It's a bit like my life, and I think it's over 15 years now. Every question I've been asking myself, I've looked for the answer to come to me, either through synchronicity or through a unseen, guided way. And I don't know how many people live like this, but I think it's more magical. The miracles that come in your life are astounding. And when we just let go, like the birds, like the Christ says, Christ says the raven. Why are you even worried? The raven doesn't get up and go, He just goes out and gets it. All in the faith, belief in the inevitable one. Right. I think I'm on the end of an episode. I'm going to click pause and see if I can check my notes first. I'm going to make an episode this week on the unshakable generation. And I think, and I've made a lot of notes to sit and discuss this. And I think it will be a good one. I think all my episodes are good. Don't want to blow my trumpet too much. But just to give a heads up, a view, if some of you haven't read the Apostles of John or the Book of Enoch, then some of the things I'll talk about might not be there. So go read up, get yourselves ready. And I'm looking at the notes now. A couple of the thoughts that I've found out there in this YouTube era. Some people speak of Yahweh and Elohim. And if you go back to those that were in the fall, when consciousness fell, to its forethought from thought. There is actually teachings that tells you Elohim was the DOD, or the demon, that was in charge of water and earth. And he had the face of a bear. I'm sure you'll see a few Egyptian things, or bear markets, some things. And of course, the Yahweh, which was the jealous one that claimed the throne. Does that sound familiar? People claiming thrones? Face of a cat. He was in charge of fire and wind. So there's your 4 elements. None of them knew the 5th element. And of course, we'll have to make this in another episode. Gonna love and bless you guys from Scotland. Thank you for tuning in. Not worried about likes, shares, or subscribes, but you know it all helps. So if you want, God bless you guys. In the name of Jesus Christ, may you have a blessed week. May it be a week full of prosperity and abundance. Love you all.